Welcome back to another episode of the Fin Out of Water Football Show. We are back to react to week 13, and what a beautiful week 13 it was, man, for 31 out of the 32 teams. But it was not beautiful for the team that we talk about every damn week. Rod. Your Miami Dolphins were a sight for sore eye on Thanksgiving Day in prime time. They did not show up, but we'll get to that, man. On today's episode, we are reacting to the Eagles Baltimore Ravens game with MVP ramifications. We're gonna do a little bit of your wedge, your red zone or whatever. Man, I'm all discombobulated, bro. I'm tired, bro. I'm sorry, dog. I'm all over the place. I
Hey,
apologize, man.
you know what, Herb? It's okay because at the end of the day, like I'm tired too. Like we're all fucking tired now.
We're tired,
Like that's
man.
that's adulting now. You know,
Yeah,
that's just
man.
what it
Trust me,
is.
that's one of my worst intros ever. Listen, man, I'm still pissed off at these fucking Dallas Cowboys that don't know how to get right, dog. It's a lot going on, man. So that's it, man. But let's go ahead and break down week 13, man. Starting with your Miami Dolphins, Rod. And again, like I said, you guys were on prime time. You had the 8:30 slot for Thanksgiving. Everybody in America was tuning in to watch you guys. We were full, we were fed, and we were all sitting on the couch ready to devour what was the Miami Dolphins versus the Green Bay Packers, man. And I will say this, I will say this, I will say this, and hopefully this will be the last time I have to say this. But Rod, man, the Miami Dolphins are who we thought they were, man. They are
Denny,
not
shout out to the
beating,
great Denny Green, man. Shout out to the great Denny Green, man.
you guys are not beating any allegations. You guys, of all the games that you could lose, that was the game that you can't lose. You can't lose the game that everybody says you're gonna lose. You might have a trap game here or there. You might overlook a Carolina Panthers, but you cannot lose the game where everybody for the past 2, 3 seasons have been clowning you for a game that's under 40 degrees, dog. So take me to your take me through your Thursday, bro. Let's recap that game, sir.
Well, Herbie, I'll put it to you like this, man. I'm pretty sure just about any Dolphin fan who's been a fan long enough, about as long or even longer than me, when we saw that the defense early to start the game, because we deferred and we gave Green Bay the first possession. I'm pretty sure every Dolphin fan, after we got the stop and Malik Washington muffed the punt, Herbie, at that moment, Herbie, you know me, and anybody who watches this that knows me, that has watched a Dolphin game with me, y'all know a nigga could be animated. Like when it comes to the Dolphins, I'm not a very emotional person at all. Like I'm not really like that. But if there's anything in the world that could get a rise out of me, that can get me in my emotions, it's the Dolphins. So let me tell you something, Herbie. When I watched Malik Washington muff that punt and the Green Bay Packers got the ball at the 9-yard line, I watched the rest of the game in silence. I didn't say a single word. All I did throughout the entire night watching that game was shake my fucking head, Herbie. Let's recall something that was said about the Dolphins just a couple weeks ago. We were talking about Deshaun Elliott, right? And Deshaun Elliott was, people had mixed feelings about what he said. Like a lot of people were just like, yo, you can't be saying that. You were in that locker room, blah, 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 blah. But when we were on here, we were both just like, yo, bro, you can't say that. But what I said at the time, Herbie, was right message, wrong messenger. And at the end of the day, all those allegations about the Dolphins being soft, all those allegations about them not being able to play in the cold, and some of the shit they say is like kind of like I don't agree with, right? Like people make it seem like, oh, it's Tua that can't throw in the cold. Herbie, anybody that points to Tua as the main fucking problem in the game, he wasn't part of the solution, Herbie. We had 3 points going in like to the mid third quarter, so obviously there was issues going on. But Herbie, the most frustrating thing watching the Dolphins is just the fact that we are a team that when we have to rise to the occasion as a team, when we face adversity as a team, we fall apart. So, the defense could have stopped a little bleeding after that muff punt. You already got a start to stop the game. You give up a touchdown, cool. The first offensive drive, Herbie, we end up in a 3rd and 29 situation because of bad penalties. because of just mental errors. We have to punt. Green Bay just marches down the field, and we're down 14-0 before you could blink. So when I watched that game on Thursday, Herbie, I was able. It was a microcosm of our season as a whole. We put ourselves in a hole that was too deep to come out of, and a lot of it was because of mental errors. A lot of it was because of bad discipline, poor execution. Herbie, the defense had 20 missed tackles. We had 10 accepted penalties, Herbie, several of which were on the offense. The offensive line could not block in any form or facet. We couldn't get anything going in the running game. Tua got sacked 5 times, and there was probably a couple sacks that he could have, maybe got out of if he hadn't been trying to make a play. But there was a couple sacks, Herbie, he had no chance. Like, bro, your all-pro left tackle, Teron Armstead, whips on the block like he's the fucking shadows of Dallas Thomas or Jesse Davis. Some of the putrid turnstiles that used to be in our offensive lines in the past that were part of historically bad offensive lines. He didn't even get a hand on a guy in one of those. Like, nigga had no chance. Like, every facet of the football team, Herbie, whether it was the offense, whether it was the defense, whether it was the special teams, nobody could have anybody else's back. And listen, I'm gonna give props to the Green Bay Packers, Herbie. Like, I was looking forward to this game because this game was a measuring stick, right? We beat up on a couple lower level teams like we normally do, and then we will see where we're at with the Packers. And where we're at is where we've really been the past 3 years under Mike McDaniel, Herbie. And I'm starting to wonder if it's a culture issue. Like the Dolphins, for whatever reason, when we go up against the top competition, our talent, like we have, like you can see our talent level when we play mediocre to bad teams. But when we play against good teams, Herbie, we don't play up to our talent level in large part due to mental errors on our part. Like when you're Jonnu Smith, you can't get pissed off and catch a 15-yard penalty. Tua, you're the quarterback, a veteran quarterback in this league. You can't be taking delay of games, bruh, in a big game. Like the offensive linemen, false starts, holding calls. Like the Dolphins continually shot themselves in the foot against a playoff caliber team. You're going up against one of the more complete teams in football, a team with a good quarterback, albeit he likes to give up the ball. And that's the other thing, Herbie. The defense in the second half, I mean, the Packers were on cruise control in the second half. Like, I've seen people online be like, oh, the defense held the Packers. No, the Packers were never worried about us coming back, Herbie. Like, they were never worried. Like, that's how I look at it, right? We didn't get any sacks on them. We didn't get any turnovers. Like, Herbie, our defense didn't really make any plays against the Packers and against an offense that can give the ball up. Like, Jordan Love has probably had 2 games this season where he hasn't thrown a pick. Guess what one of those games were, Herbie? The Dolphins game. So, it's when I watch these Dolphins, Herbie, it's just frustrating that every time we have a chance, every time the Dolphins have an opportunity, because I'm a big believer, Herbie, no matter whether it's football, basketball, your job, whatever the case may be, when you're aiming for something, when you want to prove something, you always have an opportunity to do it. If you're not dead, if you're not out the game, you always have a chance to prove people wrong. You always have a chance to change the narrative. And Tua was talking all that, and he didn't really play that bad. Like he missed a couple throws in the first half, Herbie. And here's the crazy part. I see a lot of Dolphins fans. Like the people outside is cool, but I see a lot of Dolphins fans who are crucifying this man. And I'm thinking to myself, Herbie, like, I get it. He's a quarterback. He's a $200 million man. He's the face of the franchise. He has to bear some of the culpability no matter what. I get that. But Herbie, you're going to be more mad at him than the defense that missed 20 tackles, made no plays? You're going to be more mad at him than the offensive line that couldn't run block at all, that couldn't pass block at all? You're going to be more mad at him than the special teams that gave essentially Green Bay the first score of the game and completely killed the tone that we tried to set early on? Like, the Dolphins are a team as a whole, Herbie, and even the play calling, like Mike McDaniel regressed as a play caller, Herbie. I noticed.
All right, relax. All right, man. You were pumping hot, baby. You're pumping hot. You were revved up. I can't even keep up. You going here, this here. All right, let's focus. You got smoke for niggas.
Herbie, hey, listen, I've been holding this in for a few days, bro.
You've been simmering, dog. You've been simmering.
Hey, I've been baking like turkey, dog. Like, straight up. Like,
you sure? Listen, you sure you wasn't a turkey in the oven on Thursday, dog? Because you were cooking right now. Relax,
nigga.
All right,
hey,
so
I
let's
see the stuffing falling out of me.
Okay,
right
how about this? We're gonna dissect this thing one by one. All right, so it's a quarterback driven league. Everybody wants to talk about quarterbacks. quarterbacks are the most interesting aspect of football. So let's focus in on
Always.
that point that you're talking about with Tua specifically, right? He is a $200 million man. He did have his mistakes. I am gonna throw this. I'm gonna throw this entire game out the window because this is gonna be a game 20, 30 years from now. People are gonna be like, "How did they lose that game?" Tua ball. No, it was
No.
27-3 at one point. Like that was a lot of.
He
It
just had
was
to
a
throw
lot
the
of empty.
ball.
Yeah,
He
it was
had
a
to
lot
throw
of
the
empty
ball.
calories, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this is a game where I'm not blaming Tua for that game. Like I'm not gonna blame Tua for that game. I do want to have this conversation though because it's a very important conversation to have. This is 0-8 now. Now, is it all his fault that he's 0-8 in games that the weather is under 40 degrees or lower? I don't know. But there is something to be said about it. And the problem that you guys are going to run into, and the problem that you guys are going to run into for the foreseeable future, we said it on last week's pod, you motherfuckers are in the AFC. You have to go to Baltimore. You have to go, if Cleveland is good, you have to go to Cleveland. You have to go to Pittsburgh. You have to go to Buffalo. You have to go to Cincinnati. None of your teams, you're a dome team that plays in an outside conference. You're not in the NFC. You don't got the Atlanta Falcons. You don't have the Dallas Cowboys. You don't have the Detroit Lions. You don't have the Minnesota Vikings. You are in the outside. We outside conference. Y'all niggas is outside. Y'all like to be in the club. Y'all like to be in the streets. Y'all the outside conference. The NFC, we are homebodies, man. We want to be nice and warm in the dome.
You know what? I never thought about that. The NFC does have a lot of teams that have a dome. I didn't
We
even
have
think
a
about
lot. That is why the Packers have struggled in the NFC playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. It might be different with Jordan Love. It's to be determined. But they're a inside team that plays in the worst conditions imaginable in Wisconsin in February and January. They're built to play fast. They're built to play in a dome. The Dolphins are looking like they're built to play in a dome. And again, it wasn't even that cold, dog. And dudes didn't show up in this game. That's the real alarming part.
that.
I
The
could
defense
understand
killed me, man.
the
That's
defense.
what I really did. They
I
killed
get
me,
the
man.
I get that game against Kansas City. You couldn't pay me to be in -6 degree weather with a 30 -30 wind chill. I understand that.
That's frozen hell, man. That's a frozen hell, bro.
I
That's what that is.
understand that. That game on Thursday, it wasn't that cold for y'all to immediately lay down. One fucked up punt return, one bad punt shouldn't make everybody just say, "All right, it ain't gonna be our game. Let's just check out of it immediately."
Bro, bro, Herbie, the saddest thing about it, Herbie, and I know I'm not the only Dolphin fan that feels that way. Any Dolphin fan who's been a fan of this team for a long enough time, when they saw Malik Washington muff that pump, we knew exactly what type of game it was going to be. Herbie, I didn't say a word. Like Jesse, my witness, my sister. Like normally I'm a nigga who's hyped, screaming, "Yeah, man, what the fuck?" Nah, none of that, Herbie. I just shaking my head, man. Just shaking my head. I was a fucking emoji, Herbie, shaking my fucking head the whole time. Like,
So let me ask you this: because you have a quarterback who, up to this point, and I have the stats, they are not pretty. He struggles in what do you consider bad weather games. Where do you go from here? Because he is a $200 million man. So that's really what I want to get your thoughts on and your analysis in regards to Rod.
well, I mean, look, it's hard. Listen, you can't argue, the statistical facts of the situation. I do think, obviously the media, talking heads, fans, people take the narrative, and if you're especially someone who's down on Tua, is not a fan of Tua, whatever, you're gonna be like, oh, he can't play in the cold weather. But listen, there have been a couple of those games where he didn't play well, Herbie. This was a game that just got out of hand before he could really do anything. So it was just one of those things to where it's just like I'm watching him throw the ball. He's throwing the ball just fine. I think what it comes down to, Herbie, first of all, people have to understand the Dolphins prior to the Tua era have been bad in the cold. Like, granted, when you have a great like Dan Marino was able to put up points because he had that kind of arm. He was from Pittsburgh, shit like that. But ultimately, Herbie, the Dolphins as a team, generally speaking, we have not fared in our history of our franchise. Like, that's why Tua getting hurt really hurts us as bad as it does. Because if you really think about it, Herbie, just based on our history and based on the way we play football, the Dolphins just are not a physical enough football team, Herbie. You need to have a physical, tough team to be able to play these cold weather games because, listen, like catching a cold football ain't easy. Uh, the Dolphins, you know what I'm saying, catching a cold football ain't easy. Taking those hits when in the cold, like I've been in Florida my whole life. I never played football in a cold state, cold weather. At the end of the day, Herbie, I imagine that when you're cold as shit and you take them hits, it hurts even more. You feel it even more in your bones. So like you could see it in the game on Thursday night, Herbie. Like the Packers, especially their defense, they were more physical than us, dog. Like our offensive line couldn't get any push, couldn't do anything. Since losing Austin Jackson, Herbie, our running game has gone to shit. And I realized part of the reason why I've seen a regression in Mike McDaniel's play calling, Herbie. See, this is what people have to understand because me and you, we always talk about the chess match that football is. The Dolphin, I mean, the teams against the Dolphins, like all these defenses, they are running damn near almost exclusively cover two while mixing a couple things in because they're afraid of our speed burning them off the top. So the best way to combat cover two, Herbie, is to be able to run the ball and to throw it underneath and nickel and dime your way up the field. Our offense, when Tua returned, was able to do that because we were actually able to have a bit of an effective running game. When you can run the ball 4 yards, you can run the ball another 5 yards here, another 6 yards here, and then you throw some short passes, boom, you score. That keeps the defense on their toes. It helps one because it keeps you in manageable down and distances, and two, the defense isn't pinning their ears back on a pass rush, constantly going after the quarterback because they kind of have to consider the run. It gives them more shit to think about. Herbie, when the Dolphins are a team that our offense really doesn't work without the running game. Like, look, if you look at just about any team in the NFL, Herbie, that's one of the top tier teams. They all have running games. The Ravens have a running game. The Lions have a running game. The Bills have a running game. The Chiefs, somewhat, Pacheco got hurt, but for the most part, they make shit work. At the end of the day, Herbie, without a running game, you put yourself in a bad position. Part of the reasons why Tua and Mahomes are the only two niggas that are converting on 50% of their third downs, on more than 50% of their third downs, is because they're able to keep themselves in manageable downs and distances. When you're constantly on second and long, constantly on third and long, you put yourself in a situation where the defense has the advantage. And the defense, the Packers in general, had the advantage all night. Their offense made our defense look soft, Herbie. Even though if you look at the numbers, they didn't have Josh Jacobs didn't have big rushing numbers. He ran the ball just enough. He ran tough yards just enough. They were able to complete little short passes here and there and keep their drives going and eating up clock. So it's kind of like a disheartening thing, Herbie, because we've been in this regime for 3 years, and I like Mike McDaniel. I'm not like I've seen people calling for him to get fired. I think that's foolish. I don't think you fire like this is the one good coach we've had in like 20 fucking years, dog. Like I don't think you should be in a rush to fire him. Like that's part of the reason why we've been stuck in the same position. You got to give guys a chance to grow. But Mike McDaniel, Herbie, as a coach, he has to do a better job of making sure the team is prepared for these big games. Like you got to do a better job of making sure these guys are more disciplined. Like we shouldn't have 10, 11 penalties, bro, that
I
completely push
mean,
us
hey
back.
man, listen. Like that's just at the end of the day, there's teams that are going to be heavily penalized. There's a team that's going to be not. Right? The Dolphins are just going to be one of those teams, especially under the Mike McDaniel.
Crazy,
And
man.
that's just what it is. But there was some comments that came in that was so crazy. We got to get to them, bro. So, um, not sure who our homie Trania Mills is, but she
Hey, how you doing?
says
How you doing? How you doing?
Miami Dolphins to a trash QB. That ain't the one I really want to focus in on. But this one is spicy hot, Rod. So I need you to go ahead and react to this one right here, my boy. Miami Dolphins should draft Shador Sanders. Now, that's not gonna happen. You guys are not gonna get
Nah.
nowhere near the top 10. But what this is what's going on in the like I'm sure that this person is not a Miami Dolphins fan, right? But this is the perception that these people have of Tua. Like people who don't watch the Dolphins, who are not familiar with the Dolphins, and quite frankly, it's not their job or their business to be familiar with the Dolphins, bro.
Of
All
course,
they
of
could
course.
go
I
off
never.
of what their perceived notion is, what they already feel about Tua, and what they're going to continue to feel about Tua. So Tua said, "I'm going to beat these narratives, and I love putting narratives to bed." He did not help, bro, on prime time, dog, when the whole world was
Nah,
watching, bro.
nah.
And
He
this
did.
is
He did.
what you get. This is what you
No,
get.
you know
Go
what,
ahead,
Herbie?
go
I
ahead.
don't. No, Herbie. I don't listen. I don't begrudge fans of other fan bases. Like, look, they often say, Herbie, that a first impression is a lasting impression. And unfortunately, Tua's first impression will always stick with him. There are still people saying he can only throw 5-yard passes in my fan base. I see it on
Which is
Facebook.
pretty ridiculous.
And
That's so ridiculous.
I heard it, like, it's so crazy to me, dog. Like I get it from like Trinia. I appreciate, I appreciate any comments, any
Yeah,
positive,
we
negative.
absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
If you got anything to say, go ahead, y'all. It's America's a free country. Like I ain't mad at that, especially if you don't follow the team. But it's when people who follow the team be like, bruh, y'all know, like, listen, we haven't had a quarterback like Dan Marino since we've had him. But Herbie, we haven't had anything close since Tua. Everything in between has been nothing but pain and suffering. You seen how the team looked the 4 weeks he was out? Imagine 20 fucking years of that. With an occasional Ricky Williams here, an occasional Ronnie Brown here, an occasional Brandon Marshall here, which never really amounted much to anything. Like, look, I get that Tua is not people's favorite quarterbacks. He has his limitations, but he is an elite passer in the league, Herbie. Like, the film will tell you, the numbers will tell you. Like, I don't know what else the man has to do other than I know what he has to do because Dolphin fans will want it too, Herbie. And this is the one problem I have left with Tua because I don't really have a problem with this game. What I have a problem with is that at the end of the day, he needs to have some big wins under his belt, Herbie, or else he's going to be the Matthew Stafford of South Florida. You're going to be a good, talented quarterback that some people know is good, but they'll never give you the credit you deserve until you win something, Herbie. At the end of the day, you could be good. You could put up nice numbers. Like this game, Tua put up nice numbers, Herbie. They're real nice.
Great
But
numbers, awesome
if you
numbers.
if you were watching the game, like Herbie, when I saw his numbers at the end of the game, I was like, "What? That nigga threw for 360 yards."
He had the most, I'm not. This ain't
what?
hyperbole. He had a top 5 least impactful 360-yard game of all time, bro. It's in the top 5.
It was the quietest 360 yards I ever seen, bro.
Man, that shit was quieter than a mouse trying to get cheese. That shit was quieter than a highly trained ninja assassin, dog. That shit left no footsteps. I could have Superman hearing, and I didn't hear that fucking 360 yards, bro. It was that quiet. It was that fucking quiet. So yeah, it was very quiet. No impact, no nothing. Again, it was 27-3 at one point. Like
mid third quarter, man.
Mid third quarter.
Like it was just a debacle, man. Like
it was one of those games where you just like at some point even the Dolphins were just like, all right, bro, we're just waiting for this shit to hit 0-0, dog. Like we don't.
We just want to go. We just want to go. We just want to go eat, bro. At this point, let's try this one to the game. Right. But look, Herbie,
go ahead.
Just to finish, just to round off my thoughts on this, because we've been talking like, I was getting hype, Herbie. I knew it was a lot, too much. Especially watching that game on Thursday, it was too much to ask the Dolphins to run the table. That I knew. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think we have any hope of really making the playoffs, Herbie, but they're still technically alive. But I'll be honest with you, Herbie. I got to see what we do. I think the next good team we play might be the Niners. It's either the Niners or the Texans. We get one of those two teams first. That's basically quote unquote the Dolphins season. If you ask me, the season's kind of like after losing this game, it's just it gave me flashbacks, PTSD actually of the end of last season when we were depending on the Dolphins to do something. We were leading the division the whole year, blah blah blase. Strike out the last 3 games, and Tua played badly in those games. He hasn't even played bad. That's what Herbie. You know what hurts? What hurts me the most is if you look at Tua's numbers and all our losses, and if you could throw the stats out in this game, like they look good, but it didn't really matter. But the previous 2 games we lost to the Bills and the Cardinals, he legitimately played well.
Yeah, he was great.
We still can't win. We still can't win, and it makes me think about teams like the Bengals. Like sometimes in football, Herbie, it doesn't matter how good or great the quarterback is or how good or great the offense is. If everything else around them is shit, like look at the Bengals today. Look at the fucking Bengals today, dog. No matter what Joe Burrow and that offense does, their defense can't stop anybody. 4-8 on the season with a top 5 quarterback and top 5 receiver. That's insane to me. And like it just goes to show how humbling of a sport football can be.
Yeah, and I want to go ahead and leave on this one point, and this is where. And I want to get your reaction to it because this is the separator though, right? You can't even be considered with the Bengals because the Bengals been to a Super Bowl. We know this is a one-off with the Bengals. We don't expect the Bengals to be in this situation maybe for another 5 years. This seems familiar with the Miami Dolphins, and that's the problem. ultimately that's the problem, because it's like no matter how much you want to believe in them, no matter how much you want to really try to just put your foot down and sink in with it, ride or die with them, there are things that's going to happen in the season that's going to say, "Ah, shit, here we go
Same old
again, bro.
Dolphins.
Same old Dolphins, dog."
Same old
In
Dolphins,
that
man.
game, we're going to see what this team is made of, and we're going to see if this really is a culture problem, because you should want to dominate the rest of the season to the best of your abilities if you can for the rest of the season. If they
Facts.
go